6, a CBS 46 exclusive. The Secretary of State's office launching an investigation into an Atlanta mayoral candidate after CBS 46 uncovered a slew of allegations against her.
Among them, running for office with felony convictions, stiffing campaign staff out of thousands of dollars, even violating campaign finance laws. Investigative reporter Rachel Polansky live outside of the Secretary of State's office tonight with this exclusive. Rachel.
Good evening. I just talked with a criminal investigator with the Secretary of State's office behind me here. He has been assigned this case after we brought these findings forward. Now, we tracked Kirsten Dunn from Texas to Atlanta, and she has over a dozen criminal charges. I took these allegations directly to her.
I just feel determined.
Kirsten Dunn refuses to allow life experiences to define her. That's what it says right on the homepage of her well-designed campaign website. A website that Cassandra Campbell says she helped create.
Her logo, her design, each color had a significance.
Campbell was hired as a strategist on Dunn's campaign, and she's one of 5 former staffers who tell me they've not been paid a dime.
She played a lot of us, like we were all victimized.
You're raising money, but where is the money going?
I experienced a lot of things that were not supposed to happen.
Dunn is upfront about having a troubled past, and she admits to spending time in prison in her early 20s. She fails to mention the rest of her rap sheet. That includes charges of fraud, theft, and tampering with government records as recent as 2015. Georgia law also bars anyone convicted of a felony from holding office unless he or she receives a pardon. Has that happened? Have you received a pardon?
I have. For my felony charge.
It was an answer that kept changing throughout our interview.
It was not a pardon. It was a, I lost the word just that quick. Basically where it was just forgiven.
And who signed off on that?
It was judges in Texas. I don't remember the judge's exact name.
But that's not how it works. Dunn would have had to go before the Texas or the Georgia Board of Pardons and Paroles, and neither had any record of that.
You're not allowed to run for office because you can't hold the office.
And that's not all. Professor and attorney Manny Aurora also had questions about Dunn's fundraising. After we showed him that the donate button on her website took users to an app for small businesses, where it shows the funds going into her personal company, Business for Social Change.
I've never seen any politicians actually taking money and putting it into their own personal account before. How are you spending it? What are you doing with it? And yeah, that needs to be looked into.
I 100% fell for it.
Molly Mayfield is another ex-employee. She worked for Dunn at her now bankrupt marketing agency in Texas, and she too says she was never paid.
She's just hopping from Texas to Atlanta, and who knows where she would go next.
It's not just one person, though. There's, multiple people from your campaign, and there's multiple people in Texas. So it does look to be a pattern.
Absolutely. I can see how it can look to be a pattern. It's not one. It's one that's being fabricated.
While Dunn has only filed one campaign finance report, and it was over a month late and incomplete, so we still do not know how much money she raised or what she's done with it.
Tonight and only on CBS 46, the state's Ethics Commission is opening a campaign finance investigation into a former Atlanta mayoral candidate.
The Georgia Secretary of State's office began looking into Kirsten Dunn after a CBS 46 investigation uncovered more than a dozen criminal charges in her past. One question remains tonight. How did she get on the ballot in the first place?
CBS 46 investigative reporter Rachel Polansky has been digging for answers. Rachel, what have you found out?
Believe it or not, when a person decides to run for office in Georgia, they do not have to undergo a background check. All they have to do is fill out and sign this notice of candidacy and affidavit. However, this document does hold some power, and it's likely that it will become the crux of the Secretary of State's investigation.
I just feel determined.
We introduced you to Atlanta mayoral candidate and convicted felon Kirsten Dunn last month, whose lengthy rap sheet includes charges of fraud, theft, and tampering with government records as recent as 2015. We also introduced you to some of Dunn's former employees and campaign staffers who say she never paid them.
I 100% fell for it, and then now I'm on the end of being scammed.
She played a lot of us, like we were all victimized.
Since our first report aired, more people have come out of the woodwork, including Janet Scott Mayfield, who invested $44,000 into one of Dunn's business ventures and says she did not see a penny in return.
It makes me feel pretty sad because we all work for our money, and she knew it was for ill intent.
She's really good with her words.
There's also Roosevelt Sears III.
I feel tricked, bamboozled.
Another Atlanta mayoral candidate who dropped out of the race and endorsed Dunn 1 week before the election.
It just reinforces, everyone's belief that politicians are crooks or liars.
CBS 46 Investigates has since learned that candidates do not have to undergo background checks. A spokesperson for the Georgia Secretary of State's office said the municipal election superintendent shall determine if the candidate is qualified to seek and hold the public office. While the municipal election superintendent told me, I'm not authorized to run criminal background checks. It's something that surprised Dr. Tammy Greer, a political science professor at Clark Atlanta University, who also offered a solution.
Could it be possible for candidates, particularly on the municipal level, to provide their own background checks when they are submitting their documents and their fees in order to be on the ballot?
There is one safeguard in place, though. This notice of candidacy and affidavit signed by Kirsten Dunn on August 20th, 2021, that says she has not been convicted of a felony involving moral turpitude. That's a crime done with evil intent. Her signature acknowledging that any false statement knowingly made by her will subject her to criminal penalties. It's likely that this is what the Secretary of State's office is now investigating. And as far as what happens next, Dr. Greer says this situation is much bigger than one candidate's actions.
It is critical that we get this process, get it under control, because how many other candidates may have violated this oath that we don't know about?
Now, we asked Kirsten Dunn for a follow-up interview to talk about our new findings, but she wouldn't agree unless we sent her our questions beforehand. And of course, that's something that we just don't do.